Welcome. Call to order, and today's invocation will be by Pastor Darren Nettingham from the Village Church. Welcome.
Good evening, welcome. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Members of council, let us pray. Sovereign God, our Creator, we recognize your presence in this place. We thank you for the elected officials, and we ask that they will feel empowered and feel your presence as we discuss the city of Virginia Beach and all that you would have to take place. We ask, God, that we will recognize you and that they will feel empowered and led, God, for the months, the years to come. The decisions that they will make on today will yield positive results. We thank you in advance for the success of this session. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, do we have the roll call?
Yes, they're all present.
Okay, could I get a motion for the certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the vote is open.
Thank you. By a vote of 11-0, you've certified the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
Thank you, and I could get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the informal and formal sessions of February 18th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Okay, vote is open.
Mayor, may I have your vote, please?
Oh, sorry, there we go.
By a vote of 11-0, you've approved the minutes as submitted.
Okay, I am now going to read about the bid for the non-exclusive franchise agreement. Pursuant to Virginia Code 15-2-2102, I now summarize the bids that have been received for the non-exclusive franchise agreement for the purposes of installing, operating, and maintaining network facilities for wireless communication services within the city's public streets and right-of-ways. One bid was received. GU Holdings Incorporated has bid the following: 10-year franchise with 3 additional 10-year renewable options, not to exceed 40 years. Are there any other persons that desire to submit a bid at this time? There being no further bids, the bidding is closed. City staff has evaluated the bid and received from GU Holdings Incorporated and recommends the company be granted the franchise. We will now open a public hearing for the proposed non-exclusive franchise agreement to install, operate, and maintain network facilities for wireless telecommunication services within the city's public streets and right-of-ways. Can we call the speakers?
It's going to be I-1.
This is I-1.
Okay.
We have one speaker, Barbara Mester.
Okay, these bids are non-exclusive, this franchise. You lease the right-of-ways and the roads, and I believe this one's for 5 years plus. For construction, we need our right-of-ways for safe entry and exits. We have nonstop, uncontrolled growth. These private wealthy companies, this one is Google, should buy their own land, and they pass on, the fees to the residents. Y'all lease it to them, and then they pass it on to us. So, some of these companies are subsidized by the Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority, local and foreign, including the Spanish company Sanjay Cortofino that partnered with Camp Pendleton and Microsoft. Anyway, I oppose the non-exclusive franchise and leasing to so many private companies. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the speakers, sir.
That's all the speakers. Okay, we will close the public hearing and move on to public comment on H1, ordinance to adopt and incorporate the Virginia Beach Comprehensive Plan, the Virginia Beach Resort Area Strategic Action Plan 2030, and amend sections 1.1 and 1.2 Ray Resort Strategic Growth Area. Any speakers?
Yes, several. The first speaker is Reed Greenman. Reed Greenman. Kevin Martingale. And after Mr. Martingale is B.J. Bowman.
Welcome, Kevin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Kevin Martingale, and I'm familiar with most of you. For those who don't know, I first moved to this area in 1988 to work as a lifeguard full-time since 1992, and been practicing law and living at the oceanfront and working at the oceanfront continuously since then. I want to commend you on some of the things I think you've done really well. You developed 31st Street in a way that is very attractive. You're currently working on the field house on 19th Street, and a couple years ago, my son Jackson and I were here speaking in favor of that, and you've gone forward with that. You've improved the oceanfront in so many ways, and seriously launched this area towards the direction of becoming a true year-round destination. We've seen a tremendous upgrade in hotels over the years, and I hope that you're going to continue with that, but I will tell you I am concerned about the new version of the strategic plan for the oceanfront and the idea that we're going to set aside a huge tract of land for a park at the Rudy Loop area. You'll recall back in 2008 with the prior plan that the idea was that this would be saved for development for the highest and best possible use. We talked a lot in that time frame about 19th Street, 31st Street, some of the key areas along the oceanfront being necessary to be set aside and saved for certain kinds of development. This is a key opportunity, and I hope that you're not going to squander it, and I think that's what we're about to do. A tremendous amount of money has been spent assembling parcels at Rudy Loop with the idea that we would eventually solicit bids in a competitive process and see what we get. Give the developers a fair opportunity to give us some meaningful proposals. Now is the time. Interest rates are low. The economy has been humming along nicely, and I don't think we should wait for another recession like we were dealing with close to the end of the first decade of the 2000s. I think that you need to at least find out through a competitive solicitation process what ideas are out there. If you look back at the 2008 plan, I was struck by two things in particular that were stated therein. One, we want more and better hotels. Two, we want to be a more of a year-round destination. And we have achieved that. But Rudy Loop is clearly a part of the long-term plan. It has to be. It is a key strategic location. And so instead of making up our mind right now with the plan that you're about to pass that we're going to say, well, that has to be set aside to be a park, what I hope you will instead do is get ideas from all qualified bidders out there and then see if you can find a way to go forward with something in the nature of development. Or perhaps it will be a little bit of both, kind of like 31st Street. We have a very nice hotel. You also have a park space. But the idea that we're going to spend all that money to assemble that property and then spend a lot more money to create a viable, useful park, to me is about as realistic as thinking we're all going to have free college in a couple years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next speaker is B.J. Bowman. And after Ms. Bowman is Barbara Messner.
Welcome, BJ.
Hello, Mayor. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. Good evening, Mayor Dyer, City Council members, and city staff. My name is B.J. Bauman. I'm here to speak in support of the 2030 Resort Area Strategic Action Plan. This evening, I am doing triple duty. I'm representing the Resort Advisory Commission, I'm representing the Virginia Beach Restaurant Association, and I'm representing the Virginia Beach Hotel Association. Each of these organizations are solidly in support of this plan and actively participated in the creation of this plan. We especially want to thank Councilman Tower and Councilwoman Wilson and the city staff for their hard work and guidance during this process. Staff had to manage a tremendous amount of data and information while keeping everyone focused on our objectives. That was no easy task. We intentionally planned that this committee would be a diverse group and felt that it was important in this day and age for museums, trade organizations, design professionals, neighborhood and civic league representatives, the Virginia Aquarium, the Planning Commission, the Resort Advisory Commission, all of us would have a seat at the table to make this plan. Additionally, we reached out with public workshops and surveys to gather input from Virginia Beach residents. Collectively, we've produced a plan that has the support of all of these entities. It was a lengthy process. It's taken well over a year, but the results are worth it. Now the really hard work begins. We would especially request that you assist us in making the mobility study and a central management entity a priority. The mobility study will be able to provide a baseline of movement throughout the resort, therefore creating a path to what physically needs to take place. The central management component will allow for a concise and organized way of handling all of the activities taking place in the resort area. And I would like to make just one clarification, because I know that you've received a presentation on this plan, is this is a really big document, and it talks about a lot of things in addition to Rudy Inlet. Needless to say, Rudy Inlet's very near and dear to my heart, but I would ask that you not get caught up in the dynamics of what's going on with that and look at the overall plan here. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of this team, and thank you for allowing us to participate.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Barbara Messner, and then after Ms. Messner is Gary Ryan.
Welcome.
Good evening. I think it's really important. It would be nice when the speakers, like B.J. Bauman, who used to have Frankie's down on Laskin Road, they're major stakeholders. I attended the retreat, which wasn't advertised, it wasn't videotaped. I don't know why. We have 194 projects in the works, but it's a conflict. We're subsidizing, the Hotel Motel Restaurant Association, and that's taxing district. The Vibe is expanded to practically Bird Neck Road, and that's a new taxing district, and it's subsidized with city and state money. You're just moving everything, the whole ocean front. So as far as parking, you systematically remove parking for locals. You want them to come back in the winter, but not in the summer. I think it's up to the employers to provide parking and shuttles. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Ryan. After Ms. Ryan is Kate Pittman.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor Dyer, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Hello, City Council, thank you so much for hearing us on the Resort Area Strategic Action Plan. My name is Gary Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art. I am a member of the steering committee, and as a member of the steering committee and also as Executive Director of the museum, I'm here to express full support for the RACEAP program plan. I think what's really most interesting to me in coming and joining this group was that in looking at the 2008 plan, one of the first things we did was analyze what was proposed in 2008 versus what was accomplished by the time we were sitting down for the first time 10 years later. And what was really interesting is 2008 was not a dictate. It was a roadmap and a suggested prioritization for how the city looked at the resort area. And if you go through the list of all of the projects that were mentioned or referred to in the 08 plan, you'll notice that 50% of them were completed, There were things that were never part of the plan that actually happened in that 10-year period, and there are things that are still in process or on the drawing board. And that is the same framework by which we approached this plan, which is it is a set of guidelines and recommendations that has been sourced from the community, as BJ mentioned, not only the people sitting around the table, but also going out into the community and soliciting significant feedback from individuals and constituents. And so the plan that is being presented to you and asked for approval is, again, guidelines. They're not dictates, and all of it invites further conversation, but it points us in the direction about where we might want to converse first. So I just want to thank you very much for your consideration this evening, and appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
Kate Pittman. After Ms. Pittman is Andrew Jackson.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I'm here tonight to represent the Vibe Creative District, which is an active group of about 100 business owners and artists in the Central Beach District. And I also, like the other committee members, have participated now for almost 18 months, sitting through numerous hours-long meeting, really prepping and reviewing that 2008 plan, and now looking forward at the new plan. The inclusiveness of the public hearings, we feel, was a real strength of this process. The civic engagement through both the public workshops and the online surveys represented, thousands of citizens' voices in this plan. The invitation to the civic leagues, and I know how much time the staff spent going out to civic leagues and presenting to those people who are most impacted by what's happening in the resort area. And as a resident here for now 15 years and an active citizen, we really support this plan and encourage it to be adopted tonight. On one last note, I will note that Kathy Warren did come to our nonprofit board meeting last month and presented the overall scope of the plan to our nonprofit board group, and they very much supported it. So I know she's been doing tireless hours of her time after work going out. And we encourage you really to prioritize that mobility study that will create a mobility plan to very safely move about the hundreds of thousands of tourists, residents, and everyone who comes to enjoy our great city. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andrew Jackson. And after Mr. Jackson is Michael Moach.
Welcome, Andrew.
Good evening, Council. I spent some time, I guess, several years ago when I was working with a group with the aquarium, and we looked at the area. I hear, in fact, the speaker before last said that there wasn't a dictate, that you really needed to get some further conversation. I agree with that. I don't know who the thousands of people were that they included. I know there was some steering committees. That's a select group. There was RAC. That's a select group. But I really don't think they've talked to the masses in this city who are going to pay for that. So I'm not sure that this is something that needs to be voted on now, because as the other speaker said, there needs to be some other conversation and some people included. Certainly not the masses of this city who have to pay for it. That's where the money comes from. And I'm going to speak on another subject later, because I'm not sure what this move in the plan is for now. I worked over 2 years on the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan for one neighborhood, SeaTac. One neighborhood, over 2 years. So I know what goes into that, and that plan is supposed to move. It's supposed to be guidelines. What we're saying here with this is we're going to change the guidelines because maybe somebody wants to do development there. I don't know. But I will say to you now, and I'll say to you again later, I'm old. I'm not dead. I wear glasses sometimes to read, but I'm not blind. I'm looking at you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Moach. And then the next speaker will be Eddie Bourdon.
Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Dyer, members of council. I'd like to thank you and ask you for your support for adopting the 2030 Resort Area Strategic Action Plan. The RACEAP Steering Committee, made up of civic leagues, stakeholders, Vibe District, MoCA, business associations, Virginia Aquarium, volunteered over a year of their time to come up with this document. If we could use it as a blueprint for the future of the resort area, that is what we're looking for. And if adopted, the stressing of the mobility study and the central management district would be most appropriate. And thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate you coming.
Eddie Bourdon. And after Mr. Bourdon is Reed Greenman. I'm not. Oh, you better hustle.
Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wood, honorable members of City Council, I'm Eddie Bourdon, a lifelong resident whose family has deep multi-generational roots in Princess Anne County and our wonderful city of Virginia Beach. I come before you this evening to urge that you delete and reject the recommendation to designate and describe the entirety of the city's Rudy Loop property as a, quote, new park, as recommended on page 40. And that you also reject and delete the incredible assertion on page 41 that since 2008, quote, citizens and the city of Virginia Beach have come to see Rudy Loop as the best location for a permanent world-class oceanfront park, unquote. This conclusory assertion purportedly arrived at by the city is apparently being put forth to City Council by either city staff or the city-appointed steering committee as City Council's policy determination. Until City Council acts as a body, its policy is expressed in the City Council's adopted 2008 RACEAP. Interestingly, that quote about the city's conclusion, as I characterize it, is followed by the following quote on the same page. The RACEAP Steering Committee feels strongly that additional citizen input is needed before any decisions are made. This observation is seriously disjointed and inconsistent with what preceded it. I believe that the wisdom of those decisions by our past city councils to acquire these properties for $14 million and assemble them in Rudy Loop for economic development was wise because the properties are now worth around $45 million. The envisioned and promised economic development is and has been knocking on our door in one form or another, and the desired and needed economic development will bring hundreds of millions of dollars of private investment to the south end of the resort, create jobs, and more jobs, will create hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate tax value, will spin off substantial annual revenue streams to the city, and will accomplish multiple goals as set forth in RACEAP. Do any of us really believe that anybody, much less thousands of people, are going to decide to spend even a weekend, much less a week, at the Virginia Beach oceanfront because there is yet another large public park with a bandstand at the south end of the resort? Our beautiful wide beach on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean is the park that our visitors are coming here for. We set up massive stages with great bands on the beach for multiple highly successful festivals and events. We already have parks with live music and entertainment at the boardwalk on 31st, 17th, and 24th Street. Among the other attractions we have are outdoor parks and activities at the Adventure Park and Nature Area at the Aquarium, the Water Park, Owls Creek Boat Ramp, Owls Creek Tennis Center, Red Wing Lake Golf Course, Red Wing Park, First Landing State Park, Back Bay National Wildlife and Refuge, and most importantly, a 100-acre public park that the City of Virginia Beach is developing today, Marshview Park off of Norfolk Avenue, a stone's throw from Rudy Inlet.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Reed Greenman. And after Mr. Greenman is Mark Sauter.
Welcome, Reed.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. City Attorney, Acting City Manager. It's good to plan. I like strategic planning. It's good to have a vision. It's good to think about those things. I don't oppose having an intelligent process and laying out a good vision, but what I do oppose is A, insufficient, as others have pointed out. 3,000 people out of 460,000 residents. Doesn't seem like a whole lot of outreach to me. I've participated in a lot of these events, you know. Louis, you've seen me at these things over and over, the little vignettes. But you're actually not going out to the people. You have a large number of people in this city that value Rudy Loop as a surfing maven, and they want to build on Rudy. Excuse me. Somebody must be wanting to get a hold of me. Apologize for that.
They succeeded.
Yeah.
Been there and done that.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain.
So Rudy Loop is worth a lot. Let me kind of just go back quickly because we don't have a lot of time. This little card I have, I'm ready to get my free parking at the oceanfront because I've been 6 times I've been down there. Michelle and I and the kids go down. We were there this weekend enjoying the oceanfront playing tourists. We like our beach. But just like 31st Street, we had a referendum that we wanted a park for locals to come down and be welcome and participate and take advantage of it. And it is the last open space left at the oceanfront. It's a great opportunity to sort of put that caveat if you want us to come and have a place to feel comfortable. But not if we just keep filling it up with more hotels and more development. It doesn't give us a place to go and enjoy our own beach. And though we did go down and walk at the oceanfront and tried to, go in and out of the shops and looked at some hermit crabs, I really wish that you would not take this last opportunity and turn it into just more of the same. It's just a great chance you have to stand up for the people that live here and say, hey, this place is for you. We didn't actually get it, as Eddie said, at 31st Street. That's not really a park for us. It's an amenity for the hotel next door, although I do go there for concerts and enjoy it. The process is never really good enough to go out and get input, and I guess I'll end on this. There was a comment by one of the speakers that said staff went out to the civic leagues that were impacted by the resort area. Everyone in our city is impacted by the taxes that we pay, these public-private partnerships that don't produce the return on investment that lowers our taxes and fees. The oceanfront is a very small amount of our economy, and we're a very large city that has much higher priorities. Not just this. Maybe we should focus on the rest of our city. We've really invested a lot in the oceanfront today. So I would just encourage you to preserve Rudy Loop before it's gone forever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Sauter.
Good evening, Mark.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for hearing us today. Thank you very much for this time. My name is Mark Sauter. I'm a resident of Virginia Beach. I've had a business for almost 12 years in the Vibe District. My restaurant was just rated top 100 wine restaurant in all of America by the largest wine magazine in the world, and we're proud to be in Virginia Beach. Small town, but a big town, and I think that it's very important for us to expand even more. I think that it's $30 to $50 million of land is too much for a park. I think we have enough parks in the area, enough places to go, and enough recreational things. I'm not too far away from Seashore State Park, one of the best parks in Virginia Beach. I think that it is quite reckless to allow this opportunity to pass us. I think that it's prime real estate that could expand from one end to the other and end book a great oceanfront. And so I think this is an opportunity that Virginia Beach needs to very carefully make sure that we don't pass on this opportunity to let the growth continue and make the city become one of the best cities on the East Coast for tourists and for our own citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, that's the end of the, the public comment period on that. Now, is there any one speaker items at all?
I'm sorry.
Any?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and, we have an updated version on the speaker policy that I will going to be reading that's going to include, just a few things. I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of the group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Speakers are reminded that comments during the formal portion of the meeting must be limited to the subject of the item being considered by the council at the time you are called. When speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask that other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand, those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their name, address, and telephone number for the clerk to record. Also, we have several items under ordinances and resolutions with only one speaker signed up. As such, the city clerk will call the speaker and identify each item they have registered on. The speaker will receive 3 minutes to comment on each item. Again, the speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter on the items they have signed up to address. And finally, I call upon and I ask all speakers and all persons in the chambers to be civil in their discussion and decorum, whatever views you hold and wish to express. The City Council wants to hear from you, ensure that all viewpoints and all persons are respected. And the best way to do this for all of us to strive for civility and respect. Okay? All right, do we have?
So Mayor and members of council, I'm sorry, Mrs. Strayhorn, actually, we have her down as she, signing up on another item, but she wanted to speak on the RACE plan as well.
Oh, who was that?
Louisa Strayhorn.
Oh, okay.
So can we go ahead and take her? Is
Yeah,
that
we
fine?
go ahead. Ms. Strayhorn, welcome.
Well, I have a quick
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
question. Policy announced tonight was the first time I've heard it as it is, which is fine, but if we're making exceptions to the policy and how we operate our agenda, I just want to know are we setting a precedent, or how are we determining exceptions to the policy that we've implemented and how we execute the agenda after a public hearing was closed? I'm just trying to understand,
Okay.
so that every citizen that comes here gets the same consideration.
Okay, understood, Mr. Thank you.
I apologize. Ms. Strayhorn, would you like to come up and? And this is for the race, we had her sign up on another item, but this is for the race app plan.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad that I'm able to come and speak before you, Mayor, and for the members of the City Council. The item they had me erroneously signed up for was Salem Woods, which of course I live at the ocean front, so that would not be mine.
Okay.
Okay? Just so you know, I'm not doing it on purpose. I did want to tell you that I'm not going to keep you long on this item because you've had some really good speakers that talked about what the plan is about. I just wanted to say, as a businesswoman, as somebody who does live at the ocean front, which, by the way, I love everything I can do at the ocean front, it is important that we look at the amount of money that we had spent in 2008 or around that area to gather those parcels for Rudy Loop. And it just, to me, when I think about cities who have spent large amounts of money for parks, I think about like a city of Chicago who has certainly a lot more of a budget for things than we do, and they have different circumstances. We are a city who is dependent many times on the vagaries of base closings and whatever else happens as far as the military is concerned. And when I think about any opportunity we can have in terms of bringing revenue into the city, it's important for us not to lose sight of the fact that over a $40 million appraisal for property is something that I, in all consciousness, could not let go by without saying to you, I really feel that that is not the highest and best use for a park. I like parks, but I like for the city to get money more. I think it's important for us. And then second of all, I think it's important, many times people don't understand that our ocean front does bring in a lot of revenue for this city, and they sometimes get tired of us spending money on projects, but those projects are bringing back revenue much more than what was spent in terms of the outlay originally. So I just wanted to make sure I voiced my concerns on that, to let you know that many of those plans in that resort area strategic plan were wonderful, especially the mobility. So I'm not against the whole plan, just that particular one where we would be spending money on something that I think we really need to use to bring more revenue in. So thank you very much on that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, I apologize.
Oh, not a problem.
So, Ms. Messner has signed up on 2 items that has not been pulled from the consent agenda at this point, K8 and K10. Barbara Messner? Number 8, which is the Pungo Ferry Bridge, and K10, which is for the purchase of the helicopter.
Oh, that's not in sequence, is it?
K8, ma'am.
Okay. K8, okay. Because I was signed up on 4, but that's
Not me.
pulled. Okay, gotcha. Okay, since I have a couple extra minutes, it's like, none of these, Ms. Marshall used to talk about debt. We have $2 billion debt. Economic Development Authority does not make money, it incurs debt. And you subsidize all these private people. It's not your job. I mean, you spent $2 million to acquire one of those rundown hotels from Bruce Thompson back in '99 to take,
Ms. Messner, if you can
right.
stick to the item at hand, please. And just speak to the item
okay, 8. It's money.
on the 8.
Okay, 8, appropriating $528,172,000. Yeah, I'm talking about money,
Okay.
which affects a lot of us, not many of y'all. Most of y'all are millionaires. Insurance proceeds to CIP 2-022, major bridge rehabilitation. Wait, that's not the right one. You said 8? Did you say 8?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought she said helicopter. Expenses occurred due to damage to the Pungo Ferry Bridge, and I believe some of that damage might be due to all the flooding from all the uncontrolled growth and the lack of infrastructure. So, I just think we have a budget every year, and y'all keep amending it and moving money around. So, what was the other item? I'm sorry.
Item 10.
Item 10 on the
Okay.
helicopter.
Right, okay. Transfer $4,078,031 from CIP 8-024, replacement for the Rudy Inlet Dredge, and appropriate $549,636 in fund balance of the DEA seized asset special revenue. Mr. Moss challenged me on the Institute for Justice, saying that Virginia is one of the worst cities for abusing the seized assets. I brought the Institute for Justice magazine to show him that, we do have a bad rating on seizing assets. Sometimes people aren't even accused of any crimes and their assets are seized. Okay, this is for a police department helicopter, right? Purchase of helicopter with manufacturer savings. We need more police everywhere in the city. One of the reasons for the helicopters is, I think they help when, like when you had the mass shooting, there's only one helicopter for Centera. I think there's 2 helicopter pads. There might be 2 helicopters, but the seized assets, they should be going to Air Police to have a full staff, have all of them with body cams, which I think that was appropriated in 2017. So it's how you move the money around and the amount, and that you're not sticking with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Wood, the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, move for approval under the consent agenda under ordinances and resolutions. Item K3, ordinance to authorize city manager to execute a lease with Orsted Wind Power North America LLC for 5.45 acres at Lynnhaven Inlet regarding temporary construction office, vessel loading, and laydown site, noting that Mr. Moss is abstaining on that item. Item 6, ordinance to authorize item 5, ordinance to amend the resort open-air cafe franchise regulations regarding open-air cafe size criteria. Item 6, ordinance to authorize and accept the dedication of 1.7 acres plus or minus at 4549 Revere Drive from Salem Woods Civic Association regarding a public park. Item 7, resolution to support limited access fence modification for VDOT's I-264 Lynnhaven Parkway interchange regarding install Lynnhaven Business District Gateway signage as part of CIP 9-028 Lynnhaven Parkway corridor improvements. Item 8, ordinance to appropriate $528,172.50 of insurance proceeds to CIP 2-022 Major Bridge Rehabilitation 2 regarding reimbursed expenses incurred due to damage to the Pongo Ferry Bridge fender. Item 9, ordinance to accept and appropriate $1,000 from Families Forward to FY 2019-20 Public Health Department operating budget regarding purchase welcome resource bags to participants in the Healthy Families Program. Item 10, ordinance to transfer $4,078,031 from CIP 8-042, replacement for the Rudy Inlet Dredge, and appropriate $549,636 in fund balance of the DEA Seized Asset Special Revenue Fund to CIP number 3122, Police Department Helicopter, regarding purchase of helicopter with manufacturer savings.
Okay, open a public hearing on planning.
Under planning, item L1, Princess Anne Witch Duck Associates 1, LLC, care of Robinson Development Group, for a conditional use permit regarding eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through window at 5161 Princess Anne Road in the Kempsville District. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, second. Vote is open on the consent agenda.
By a vote
Mr.
of
Moss?
11 to 0, you've approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood, noting Mr. Moss's abstention on item number 3.
Right, I have a standing letter on this particular topic.
Yes, sir.
The reason why I'm abstaining is because I received more than $5,000 of dividends from Dominion Energy, sometimes known as DEPCO, sometimes known by a lot of things, and they are an indirect party to this lease.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess we're ordinance K1, ordinance to grant non-exclusive franchise agreement to GU Holdings Incorporated, Google Array Installation, Operate, and Maintain Network Facilities for telecommunication services in public streets and right-of-ways. Speakers.
The first speaker is Barbara Messner, and the second speaker is Andrew Jackson. Google, K1, you signed up.
Okay, I've already spoken on this, but, yeah, part of the reason there aren't that many people that show up for these meetings. But, you know, the fact that it's Election Day, a major primary, which not one of you responded to my letter saying it's a conflict because some of us would like to be at the polls. But, yeah, I already spoke on this. So I will wait for the next item.
Thank you.
Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
Those are all the speakers.
Okay.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Vote's open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the ordinance as submitted.
Okay, item K2, ordinance to amend City Code Section 8-69, 8-70, 8-72 to consolidate 4 divisions of the Board of Building Code Appeals into a single unified board.
The first speaker is Reed Greenman. And then after Mr. Greenman is Barbara Messner.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council again. It's nice to be able to come up here and thank you for doing something well. And I just want to rise in support of this change. I think looking at opportunities to consolidate and be more efficient is exactly the things that you all should be doing. And I applaud you for taking this initiative. There is a lot of red tape, as any one of you knows, if you've tried to do certain projects in the city, and it does get confusing and difficult. It's just sometimes even overwhelming. So I just was pleased to have the opportunity to come up and say thank you for doing this and taking this step in the right direction. I encourage you to do this more. We do have overlapping agencies, and sometimes it's very hard to get things done, particularly in the small business area. So thank you, and good job.
Thank you, Reed.
Barbara Messner.
Welcome back.
Good evening. Okay. I disagree. I think, another speaker, I think it's Mr. Jackson, and we should be having discussions. Ms. Henley has, her meetings at 5 p.m. And then at budget time, different people have town halls. But y'all basically pick all the topics and you decide what you want. Mr. Leahy, you know, on this agenda, sometimes it says, you know, acting city manager, sometimes it just says city manager, which is kind of confusing. So I assume he's still acting, so, you know, the agenda should.
Ms. Messner, can you please stick to the item?
I am sticking to the item. Okay, I disagree. Like I said, Mr. Leahy gave an update on May 31st, and he talked about how many problems we have filling the slots and how many people aren't, you know, ready to come back to work. This is combining building codes 8 through 69, 8 through 70, and 8 through 72. We need people that supervise all these divisions, not combining them into one single board. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
But I'd like to talk about this a second because I'm the one that requested this. Just for clarification for the public, this is the Board of Building Code Appeals, which is composed of citizens, not building code officials. And the reason, and Reed mentioned the consolidation, years ago when this was first done, the idea was a great idea, I think, but it was never really readdressed since the mid or late 80s. And what we're doing here is trying to make it a lot more user-friendly, bring in the right people who can help adjudicate this, because basically this is a board that if you disagree with what the building official says with respect to an inspection or something like that, this is your appeal process. And so it needs to be as easy as possible for people to navigate. And frankly, it needs to be easy for us to appoint qualified people to it. So when you take a look at this, we've streamlined the qualifications. I have to thank the city attorney's office for the hard work that they did, basically taking everything that I gathered through a bunch of internet research and boiling it down to a very good list of 7 criteria for people. So I think this is a great step in the right direction. Now the council, next meeting, we have to appoint these people, which is going to be the fun part. So come up with some names. But with that, Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
I have a second. Discussion. Vote is open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you have approved the ordinance.
Okay, under ordinances, number 4, we have an A and B. For purposes of discussion, I will read both. That's okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ordinances to authorize the city manager to execute a sponsorship agreement, Raise Something in the Water, LLC. Alternative 1A, $250,000 approved by fiscal year 2019-20 operating budget and in-kind contributions. And Part B, which is $250,000 approved by federal FY 19-20 operating budget, in-kind contributions, and transfer $650 from Tourism Investment Fund to the 2019-20 Convention and Visitors Bureau operating budget, which may be increased or decreased so that the total financial sponsorship equals the exact dollar amount of the admission taxes generated by the festival, and that is alternative 2 requested by Councilmember Rouse.
Can I ask a question before we?
The $650,000.
I have a question to ask of Mr. Rouse because I'm confused because it's a little bit different. So under your alternative, it's 650,000 plus the 250.
Right.
So it's not the 650. I thought it was just the 650.
It's plus the 250.
And then the other part that the mayor read said, so it's only 650, or is it up? Is it the total amount? Because the other line seems to indicate that it's 100% of the emissions tax. So,
It's total is equal to the emissions tax.
so it could be $1 million,
It could be $1 million.
whatever it is. Okay.
Right. So if I
Yeah,
can,
please,
if
go
I
right
can,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, as well. Thank you. We all understand the importance of something in the water, and I just want to thank Pharrell Williams for wanting to come back a second year and really dedicate this to to our city. Something in the Water Festival has become a nationally and globally recognized festival that highlights the beautiful culture of our diverse city. With that being said, the reason for the increase in partnership for the festival, and we shouldn't look at it as a sponsorship, look at it as a partnership. Let's talk the business side of things. I think that's what everyone really is interested about. First of all, this festival is more than just a festival. As we listened to Mr. Robbie Wells give a presentation earlier, and Mr. Robbie Wells is the executive producer of Something in the Water Festival. He described how Monday through Friday, the events on Monday, Earth Day, and us, it's a health and physical, mental health, wealth day, and part of showing a part of the strength of the planet and climate. That'll be hosted by Taraji P. Henson, who's an Oscar-nominated actress. On Tuesday, Innovation in Tech, which NASA will be here as well, alongside of the likes of Tony Hawk and Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a rocket scientist, and Sheila E. On Wednesday, Women's Day, is a day of inspiration, and we have Olympians who he couldn't name will be here as well. Thursday, it will be Food and Wine Day, and it's something that's a partnership with our Vibe district that I'm looking forward to attending as well, which will be inside and out with culinary chefs from around the world coming here. On Friday, legendary Jimmy Iovine will be here to host a job fair as well. Along with that, 7 Fortune 100 companies are coming to Virginia Beach. An increase in partnership this year with the festival is a smart business decision. And here's why. Historically, and let's be really clear with these numbers, historically, the city has been spending $259,000 on College Beach weekend with nothing to show for it. Now, prior or after that, the first year of Something in the Water has had a direct economic impact of $21.7 million. That generated $1.1 million in direct taxes. This is new money. This is money we can put forward towards flood mitigation, education, affordable housing, open space that we all care about, and other needs of our city. But this is new money that we are securing. Now that we had Something in Water, it's basically kick-started our entire tourist season. And I just found out as well, Something in the Water just has gotten accepted to the Tribeca Film Festival, which will be showcased on April 15th to the 26th, which is another really key notch for the city of Virginia Beach. So admissions tax. This is not money that we have. This money does not exist. This money is admission tax goes right back into the festival. It reinvests in the festival. So there's nothing coming out of our, there's nothing allocated in our general fund. And so why this is key is because the partnership, if we're going to spend $1 million, we're getting 27 or having a physical impact, economical impact of $21.7 million back. That is why we're securing a new source of revenue for our city going forward.
Okay, I want to give Mr. Rouse the courtesy of responding to Mr. Wood's inquiry, but we do have speakers, so if we could have the speakers come up, and then we'll have further discussion.
I just think it's important to clarify this, so, all right.
Yeah, that was my
At the
reason.
end of the
Yeah.
day, what we're going to be allocating is the admissions tax generated by this.
Right.
So the $250,000 and the $650,000 are sort of seed money, but the total amount at the end of the day is the admissions tax, which is but for money. So the $250 and the $650 really don't mean anything, except that's what we're seed money in. But the total amount is the tax at the end of the day.
Can I?
Okay,
try to-
yeah,
Am I saying
yeah.
that right?
The estimate of what the admissions taxes will be, as best it can be determined as of today, is approximately $900,000. If you adopt Mr. Rouse's alternative, you already have, you have to appropriate all money that's spent, whether it's
admissions taxes or any other form of revenue, you have to receive that and you have to appropriate it. You would be appropriating an additional $650,000 so that there would be $900,000 appropriated that could be paid. But then, if when the admissions taxes are calculated, it's less, even though that money's appropriated, the sponsorship would be less. If it's slightly more, then there would have to be a new additional appropriation, or there would have to be a transfer in accordance with your budget policies. But the $650,000 is just an additional appropriation based on the estimate of what the anticipated admissions taxes would be.
Can I,
I have a legal question. You go ahead.
can I ask a clarifying question? So let's say we adopt Aaron's. Do we cut the check today, or is it
No.
after the event?
After the event.
So no money is expended, it's only after the event?
You're just appropriating the money so that it's available.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah, we have speakers first.
Yeah.
Well, can I just ask a legal question while
Yeah,
I'm still?
please. Yeah, but I think Louis is right. We would just want to get everything clarified, before the
But in
speaker.
light of what you said, because I'm trying to understand the operative, after the comma, because it says, which may, because that's not shall, and I guess that's the qualified reason for your opinion, which may be increased or decreased, reflecting back to the $900,000 sum of those two, so that the total financing sponsorship equals, so what, I'm not sure, so your opinion is that since that says may versus shall, it's not operative until we act if it's more, but if it's less, since it's under the amount that we appropriated, it could be paid, is that correct?
It would be less.
The intent of this language is that the amount of the sponsorship will be equivalent to 100% of the admissions taxes paid, but you are only appropriating a total of, or you will have only appropriated a total of $900,000 towards that obligation.
So if the amount is less, no further action would be required.
Correct.
If it's more, because it's may, the operative word, or an appropriation would be required.
Unless it was just a couple $1,000s that the manager would have the authority under your budget ordinance to transfer and then notify you
I
of.
just want to understand the opinion, thank you.
Okay,
What does the
Barbara?
word- But what does the word decreased mean? Doesn't it mean it would be less than if the amount of admissions tax is less than that amount, it would be decreased?
The amount of the sponsorship would be less than the total amount you've appropriated, yes, ma'am.
So it would be,
Yes.
since we're not cutting a check until
Correct,
the end, it will be whatever the admissions tax was.
correct.
This money does not exist but for the festival. So it's more of an incentive for the festival to work harder and to get that equal admissions tax.
Okay, Louis?
My question is, you mentioned, Mr. Rouse,
Yes, sir.
that we had a certain amount of money that we collected in taxes.
Yes, sir.
You didn't specify which taxes. Which taxes were you talking about?
This is direct taxes generated from the festival.
But was
so
it admissions taxes, or was it
No.
total tax?
It was total taxes of $1.1 million, $1,189,334.
So
I have it.
how much of that 1.1 was admission taxes, do you know?
I do not. I wonder if we have Mr. Ron Birkendahl here as well, who know the numbers and can give us a brief presentation.
What
on
I'm
that.
trying to ascertain is how much was the excess last year over the admission taxes? And so that we can think in terms of what the increase of the excess would be in the coming year.
All right. We have those
Weigh that
projections.
against the increase that you're asking for in the admission taxes. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Does anybody have an answer to
Yes,
that?
we have Mr. Ron here, if you want.
Yes, according to the individuals who put the initial proposal together, they're going to generate $2.5 million in ticket sales, which means, and that's without the processing fee, which means that 10% of that would be the admissions tax, which would be $250,000.
Say that again.
The festival will generate 2.5.
Are you talking about the
No, I'm talking about this year, sorry. I thought that's what you were referring to. Do you need last year's?
Yes, last year.
How do you get to 900,000?
You talk it.
I'm just trying to figure out how you're coming to these figures.
Maybe we better wait.
This is not ready for vote, I can tell you that.
I don't know that I'm opposed to what you're asking for, but I want to make sure I know what I'm voting.
Yeah.
If it's 10% of 2.5.
Wait a minute, yeah, Mr. Wood?
Well, yeah, so, because I've heard a
Let him
completely
answer
different
the
number.
question.
But
Okay.
it's a specific question for him, because I heard a number that was 1.3 million last week during our, when we had our budget meeting, so that's why I'm curious where it is, because it's 250, 900, or 1.3, and
Last year was 1.3, which meant that we generated $130,000 in admissions taxes. This year, it's estimated to be 2.2 million, and they're estimating that we will generate about $220,000 in admission taxes.
So that's significantly lower than the $650,000 that Mr. Rouse is estimating.
Brian, can you clear up this?
that would be 6.5 million.
Hold on. Brian, okay, please.
The estimate last year was $650,000 in admission taxes. So that's based off 10% of the total revenue from ticket sales.
Was 650,000
Correct. In that range, yes, sir.
in admission taxes
Yes, sir. Correct.
last year?
Yes, sir.
So what's the number for this year? Because there was 30,000 tickets last year.
So
15,000 tickets
the estimate this year is, at this point, $900,000 would be the estimate for admissions taxes.
Even though
Based on the tickets, based on the estimate right now is $900,000.
Even though they're supposed to be selling double the tickets.
It's 70% more tickets. 70% more capacity this year than last year.
How much?
70% more capacity if they sell out. So the estimate right now, based on the tickets sold now, what we've been told is $900,000 is the estimate for admissions taxes at this point. It could be more.
Tax, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What about other taxes? How much was our other tax?
Speak to that one right here. So the total for last year was $1.1 million in terms of direct tax revenues.
And what is your estimate for this year?
This year is $2 million. That includes your admissions tax, sales tax, meals tax, and lodging tax.
Okay, and Mr. Rouse is asking for 900,000 of that $2 million. Is that right?
That sounds correct, yes, sir.
The admissions tax.
If, assuming that
Right.
your estimates are correct, you know.
Well, look, can I make a clarification here on some things that this $900,000 is based upon full sellout. So what I did was I looked on the website today to see where they're at as far as sales go, and their 3-day general admissions tax, they've sold out of Tier 1 and Tier 2, but they have not sold out of Tier 3. The 3-day VIP tier is sold out. Our 3-day VIP sales are sold out at Tier 1, but they're not sold out at Tier 2. And 3-day Yellow Zone, which are the $1,000 tickets, are not sold out.
Well, but
So
got until they could be sold.
they could be sold out, yes, sir.
Okay, John and then Jim.
I'll defer for the speakers. I'll save my remarks.
Okay.
Well, I still have I'm still but before speakers come up, I think we need to know what the numbers are, and I'm still confused about that. So is this something, and I don't know if it's a Mark or a Tom question, are these numbers that we're gonna actually be
be able to see ahead of time, or is this something where the commissioner gets the information and we don't actually get the raw detail? And I don't know who can answer that one.
We will have to get that information from the ticket sales after the fact. It will come from the promoter. It will not come directly from the Commissioner of the Revenue.
But the commissioner is going to be the one that's going to detect that revenue.
Verify it.
Well, I don't think the Commissioner can independently verify, but we will have good data from the promoter based on the ticket sales. But it will come from the promoter, not from the Commissioner.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Okay, we're ready for speakers at
Thank
this
you.
point?
The first speaker is Michelle Riley, and after Ms. Riley is Diana Howard.
Welcome, Michelle.
It's nice to see all of you tonight. It's probably no big surprise to y'all, but I'm not too thrilled about this. I'm a little confused about the precedent that this sets. I mean, I think that something in the water is positive. I think that it's great that it makes money for our city. That's the whole point of having it. I think it's a good thing. But are we going to just every year keep increasing the amount of money that we give to this festival? We don't do that for all the other festivals that we have here. 900, hey guys, it always makes me laugh the way y'all talk about money. $900,000 is a lot of money. It's not just chump change. It's not just whatever, here, have $900,000, like it's no big deal. The tip fund isn't just, this money, this tax is generated. How come, if the whole point is to make money, why would you turn right around and give back some of the money? Like, I don't understand that. If they're not going to cancel the festival if we don't give them more money, are they? I mean, are they still going to have the festival? I would assume they would. They've already hired all the people and sold the tickets and done all of that. I mean, I don't think they're going to not have the festival if we don't give them more money. We're already giving them our convention center to use, our police force, we're renting them our school buses, using our city employees to clean up after the festival. And on a completely unrelated note, I know that this has gone from 3-day festival now to a 6-day festival. I mean, I think it's wonderful that it's positive and it keeps it's a great thing. I have no problem with the festival. But Pharrell is one of the wealthiest entertainers in the world. And we're going to just turn around and give him more money. Like, I don't really understand that. I understand, Mr. Rouse, that you want to be the mayor of Virginia Beach, and I wish you well in your campaign, honestly. But where's the fiscal responsibility here? I mean, he keeps talking about it being a partnership, but you're partnershiping with our money, So I have a problem with this. I also hope that there's some sort of thing I hope that we're going to not pull all the resource officers out of our schools again this year, since it's Monday through Friday. That makes me really nervous. I think that's something that we need to think about. I appreciate y'all listening, and hope y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Diana Howard, and after Ms. Howard is Reed Greenman.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. How you all doing? Okay, I'm confused. All right. So we have a lot of festivals every year, every summer, and I understand that we do sponsorships for all of them in this amount, the $250,000, and that is what we put in our budget last year, and that's what we approved. And I think that's what we should do this year. I don't think we should treat this festival any different, even though it's going to be longer, right? I mean, last year you said it was $21.7 million in economic activity that was generated, and only $1.1 million was actual tax revenue coming in, including, I don't remember what it was in the amusement tax for last year. I was confused about that whole thing. I tried to write it down, but kept changing, right? But it cost us about that same amount, $1,110,515. to pay for the, you know, the use of the convention center, the parking lots, the public works, the safety officers, you know, and all of that, all the in-kind contributions. And I realize we got a lot back in kind, you know, with publicity about how wonderful the event was and the camaraderie and stuff like that. So that's great. And I appreciate Mr. Farrell coming to our city and doing all this, but he is doing all this to make the city better, right? And if he needs more money, like any other producer, he should do that by, you know, raising the price of tickets. And he has increased sponsors, getting more sponsorships, and he is increasing the sponsorship. He went from 21 sponsors last year to 34 this year. So that's bringing in more money. Now, when we went to the retreat, we were talking about what's our number one priority? Flooding, right? It's not tourism, even though tourism brings stuff into the city, brings money into the city. So what I propose is that we make a benefit out of this amusement tax instead of giving it away. I know I've advocated for this many times. We should get half the amusement tax. We're here all year long. We pay that tax. We pay it all over the place. So we should have a funding formula for flooding, and we should use that amusement tax to go towards that. And I think we should use the other taxes as well. Give a piece of the sales tax, give a piece of the hotel tax, give a piece of the real estate tax. We do this for education, right? We did this when we were doing light rail. Why not do this for flooding instead of telling people, we're gonna raise your stormwater fees every year, we're gonna raise your taxes every year? This would help the least among us that are deciding whether or not they're paying that water bill or they're eating. You know, so I think this is an opportunity, since this is generating
Thank you,
so
Dave.
much for our city.
Appreciate it.
Bree Greenman. And after Mr. Greenman is Barbara Messner.
Welcome back, Reed.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. Rouse. It's obvious to me from listening that you're not prepared to vote on this, so I would encourage you to defer this until you have more of your facts in line. I echo the sentiments of the chair of the Virginia Beach Tea Party, Diana Howard. We are taxed enough already. One of the things that we don't talk about is where do these tax revenues go when they're collected from the ocean front, and all the little pots of money they go into, like the tip fund and these other things, and they don't generally go back into the general fund. Just as Michelle said and Diana said, you're not gonna cancel this festival. You just said there's gonna be 70% more in ticket sales, and there's more sponsors. They're gonna be raking in more money. What's the problem? Why do they need more of our tax dollars? We should be celebrating the fact that the festival is successful, and we're gonna get more benefit to our citizens. But you just wanna give the money away? Why? Why? I encourage you not to do this. I like the festival. It turned a bad weekend into a good weekend, although it's growing into a week. But think about the precedent you're setting now. What other festivals and events are now going to come say, well, I get the emission tax because you've already set the precedence when you did it with something in the water? And where does that money go back into the tip fund? And does that result in being a stealth tax increase because those funds aren't where they were supposed to be to pay for this great plan you're going to approve in the comp plan for reinvesting in the ocean front? And on and on and on. I'm not a fan of giving away all this money for these things. Neptune Festival's 42 years and we still give them money. They got a $5.5 million budget. When does it end? And now you just want to set a precedent that you're just going to keep increasing it, Aaron? It's not a good fiscal idea. I understand where you see there's benefits to our city in the image and advertising, and I watched your video online. You know, I heard what you said. But your job is to, you know, look out for the interest of those of us that live here. So A, please defer this until you have the facts straight, because what I heard was, we got a 1.1 million last year, and we're just going to give away another million this year or more out of emissions tax. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's a good idea, but bring it back because it just doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Messner, and after Ms. Messner is Kate Pittman.
I'm signed up for A and B. Is this just A?
This is A and B combined.
A and B, so that means
You have 3 minutes.
just 3 minutes for 2 items, because it's usually 3 minutes for each item. Okay,
Welcome back.
thank you. Okay, I disagree 100% with the festival in general. It's $250,000 for every event, and the money stays at the oceanfront to pay down the debt. I attended the retreat, which wasn't televised, as I said, and I heard Mr. Rouse going on and on. Y'all had 2 days to discuss this, and you act like you don't know anything. What were those 2 days for? It's not your job to fill hotel rooms in the off-season. It's not your job to reward bad behavior at the oceanfront. You know, you can enforce laws. At Fort Lauderdale, they're cutting off the alcohol sales. Y'all are pouring the alcohol all over the place. We've had problems with rowdy behavior. This is off-season. You're giving away everything to promoter that wants to have his entertainment at the Dome Project. Okay, you're spending a fortune advertising, and at the retreat, Mr. Hanberry that you hired, he has a foreign liability company. It's only been around for 6 months, and you're talking about taking out more nonprofits to pay for advertising. Okay, this is a supermajority vote. It's city land. Okay, Wilson has conflicts with Town Bank, with...
Ms. Messner,
Please do not interrupt me.
civility, and if you, not the names and things, please stick to the issue at hand. I'm asking you, please.
I have a right to free speech and to inform people of conflicts. I don't appreciate that at all. Mr. Rouse and Mr. Moss have been funded by Bruce Smith, Ballard, Garcia, Watermans. They all are stakeholders. Y'all use that word stakeholders at the retreat. You know, and Mr. Rouse has not been, midterm. It's been a year and barely 2 months, and he's running for mayor. And I don't know what this, other than a nonprofit, what financial expertise you have to be mayor. Thank you.
Kate Pittman, and after Ms. Pittman is Louisa Strayhorn.
Welcome back.
Kate Pittman, again with the Vibe Creative District. I'm here to represent myself with the consent of our co-founders, Andrew Fine and Laura Huber. And we are here to support Councilman Aaron Rounce and the Something in the Water team and asking for funds, a small percentage of funds that they are generating themselves. Investment in the arts and culture for the city of Virginia Beach, we feel, is of the highest priority for the future of the city and to attract young, new talent and livelihood for the city of Virginia Beach. The Something in the Water team continues to reach out to local business owners and support schools with the gardening projects to help generate income and new business for local businesses. And we're excited to partner with them again this year. So we do feel that this is money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louisa Strayhorn.
Welcome back, Louisa.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here again. I am very happy to be here about Something in the Water because I certainly was one of the citizens that was there at the beginning. I want to say that I've known Pharrell for a number of years and for many years was the director of his From One Hand to Another foundation, which means that I understand a little bit about the person. I am here to say to you that I know for sure that Pharrell was asked if he would come and figure out a plan for this city when we were having some very bad difficulties. I personally know about those difficulties because I was down the ocean front for the 5 years preceding that, walking up and down with those students and know exactly what was going on. I also know what a tinderbox is. I've been around in this city for almost 40 years. I have been in other cities like Boston. I've been in cities all over the world, and I can tell you, the one thing I did not want to happen to Virginia Beach was for us to have a tinderbox and some incident happen when we were corralling students going up and down, and that's all they could do. There was nothing else for them to do, and some small incident caused us to have a national reputation that was negative in any way. I love this city. I don't want that for this city. I want us to understand that a reinvestment of those admission tax, when it does not affect the budget, is a small thing for what's going to happen over the next 5 to 7 years. Pharrell does not intend for this festival to be here for 2 years. He intends it for the long run, the way that he has in other areas. It is amazing that people have short memories and don't remember when we had, the finger pointing about those people. And we really don't want them down there. And let's close up every restaurant we have here so that they can't eat anything and maybe they'll go home. I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And I'm just saying, I really appreciate your consideration. And yes, I was confused too at the different reports on what that amount is, but it's the reinvestment of the admissions tax that's the important thing. Whatever the amount is, if you approve of that and it doesn't affect the budget, let's stick to the facts about that part of it. And let me just say to you, I'm very proud of this city council for having supported something in the water, and I hope you will continue to do that, and let you know that a number of the people who are investing in this, who are business people, are looking to the city to see whether or not you will continue to be one of the partners with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers I have signed up, sir.
Okay, any more comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think Mr. Rouse's intentions are good here. And so I don't want us to just, vote this down and not, work it out. It seems to me that there's going to be an equitable way to allocate the funds that come in and not just set a set figure and say that's what we're going to pay. And I understand that the promoters are, if they have triple the number of people coming here and 34 acts instead of, what was it, 21?
34 companies.
Whatever it was, significantly more acts than what they had last year, that their cost is going to be more. They're going to spend more money in order to put on the festival. So what we need to think about is what is the equitable amount of the increase in the taxes that come in as a result of the admission in order to help them with the cost and overhead that occurs as a result of the expansion of the festival. And with that in mind, I think what we need to do, and Mr. Rouse, is defer this until the next meeting so we can come up with a formula that fits the situation rather than just make a set figure. So that's what I would like for us to do. I don't want to take your motion away from you. I'm just suggesting to you that that's what I think. We need to think of this more in terms of a business transaction.
Right.
Rather than just giving away money, is what I'm saying.
Okay, if I can, Rosemary, then Aaron.
And first of all, I love the festival, and I'm so grateful that Pharrell loves his city and has done so much for us, not just in this way, but many, many ways. And I talked to Councilman Rouse about this last week. My concern is and I talked about this last week to him and some others, that this is a new precedence of doing it this way, of giving the admissions taxes back, because we have lots of other festivals that we need to make sure that there's equity in some sort. Actually, I said we should probably look at and have a policy for how we treat festivals and set up different criteria and look at statements of economic impact. And to just give you an example, I mean, you've got the Patriotic Festival that last year sold 30,000 tickets, just like Something in the Water. They pay for a good portion of their services. The police and all the services that the city provides, they pay for that, whereas we have donated in kind to Something in the Water. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but there's the same amount of tickets sold, and yet we did treat them differently. We've been giving them $115,000, and they're paying for their services. So I agree. I think that we need to do more this year because the festival is doing more. They've really stepped up, and I'd like to see that happen. The problem is we haven't had a chance for discussion, just like we, talked today about these resolutions coming along, and we did get your letter, but we hadn't had a chance to discuss it as a body. So I really think one of the outcomes I would like to see happen is that we have a policy set up with how we treat the different festivals and setting up criteria and looking at economic impacts and that sort of thing. And that might not be able to happen now, but maybe we can figure out a way to help, as Lewis said, the festival for this year and then try to get a policy in place.
Aaron?
So, I hear your comments as well. But let's be clear. Let's not compare apple and oranges. All our festivals are great, and we should handle them on a case-by-case basis. But we're talking about a first-year festival that has brought us global and national attention. Louis, you mentioned earlier, this is a business transition. This is great for business. This is smart business. When you look at the investment we are putting into the festival and what we are getting in return on that year, I don't really want us to defer it. I think the way the ordinance is written is to basically say, whether we're going to decrease or increase the amount at whatever that number is, that admission tax is, that's what we are reinvesting in the festival. And we're saying we're reinvesting in the festival because of the private side investment is so enormous. The private side investment of last year's festival was over $16 million. And then this year it will surpass that. Surpass $16 million. And so when we look at the festival in that terms, we're looking at this, getting a smart investment with a large return. That's good business. We're not asking to break the bank here. And on top of that, the money we're talking about does not exist. We're talking about admissions tax. The money does not exist but for the festival. So whatever that amount is, we're saying we are reinvesting in the festival, but also look at the return you're getting. It's basically, if I give you $1 and you telling me I'm going to give you $20 back, I will take that investment every single time. If I give you $1, you're going to give me 20 back. That is what we are talking about. And when you look at the festival and what it brings to our community, historically, we had spent $259,000 on a weekend that brought no return. A sponsorship level of $250,000 going forward. We need to increase our partnership to make this, to secure this new source of revenue going forward. This will pay dividends. I think we look at the economic impact that South by Southwest had in Austin, and their, 17 years after they were got on their feet, was $355 million, equivalent to what the Super Bowl brings in. This is a smart investment to help a festival, and it's only a second year. Get off the ground and build this foundation.
Barbara and then Guy.
Well, I think, I certainly agree with what Mr. Jones said, and I don't want to put a damper on your motion at all. I think we just need to clarify. And I think, I can certainly understand that, as thing grows, it's going to cost more. And the but-for tax is the way to do it, because but for this event, this tax would not exist, and I understand what you're saying. Kind of the problem is, in our agenda pack, this issue has got 3 different versions of how we're going to pay this. And I think that's where the confusion is. The letter says the alternative to that the sponsorship includes a financial sponsorship in an amount equal to the admissions tax generated by the festival. Such amounts will be subject to audit after the festival to ensure a dollar-for-dollar match. But it does say that the amount of the financial sponsorship in excess of $250 will then be transferred from the tip. So that says one thing. Over here in these alternatives, the alternative two ordinance that we have, has this other version that we talked about the 650,000 and the 250,000 and da-da-da. And then this alternative one staff proposal, the Exhibit A, in talking about this other proposal, has another way of allocating it. So there's three different ways that we have before us, and that's where I think I'm confused, is I'm really not sure. I mean, okay, we're going to say we're going to allocate the admissions tax, but how we're going to arrive at it and when we're going to pay it is where the differences are. And I think that's what we really need to be clear on, so that we're not, having different ideas about how it's going to be arrived at and when it's going to be paid. That seems to be the confusing part.
And our city attorney is here to, clear that up, because I had the same question.
Okay, Guy Tower and then Michael.
I'm not going to speak to the confusion. I think the concept is pretty clear. It's the admissions tax, when and how it's paid, but on the basis that we will either tonight or in the future work that out. I just wanted to say I'm going to support it, and I represent the Beach District, and it is a tricky, slippery slope for me to suggest this any kind of change in the way we compensate, if you will, these festivals. But I do think something in the water is a different animal. It is more than a festival, as Councilman Rouse opened up. One thing that I want to make sure the public understands is we're not just increasing the acts for which money can be charged. This increase in the length of the festival is due in time-wise entirely to stretching out from Monday through Friday, 4.5 days of world-class speakers, panels, all directed to attract young people to this city and to stay in this city, and to encourage them, including Women's Day and Innovation in Tech and Earth Day and job fairs, all of which is completely free to every person entering. These are not charged. There is no admissions tax on those. No one is profiting by those. Those are all out-of-pocket expenses, all done by the promoter and other sponsors other than the city of Virginia Beach. So it really is apples and oranges, in my view, to compare it to the weekend festivals, which I love, which I support, which I think some of them aren't supported at the $250,000 level, I might say, and which I would, and certainly some cases would support increasing those to get closer to or at that level. Anyway, I just thought the facts ought to get straight on that, however you feel about them, about what we're getting for the investment this year.
Mr. Bullergy.
Well, Mr. Tower mentioned talking about getting the facts straight. So I'd like to just offer some clarity on what exactly we're talking about here, based on what I understand, because the introduction of this dialogue led to some confusion, and I think that confusion exists here on council within this body and also among the public. So my understanding of Councilman Rouse's request is that this would be a remittance of the admissions taxes that would be characterized as revenue that would not exist but for the existence of the festival. Is that correct? Yeah. And that revenue would be transferred from the Tourism Investment Program budget, correct?
Yes.
So, one of the assertions that has been made among some of the speakers, and I've seen that exists in the public, is that somehow council is abandoning our responsibilities to the public on other issues, on other projects to support the festival. And I wonder, just for the sake of clarity, if the manager would just on a very simple level, explain the difference between something that would be coming from the general fund, which this is not, and from the tourism investment program. This is a revenue that would exist, but for the presence of the festival within the tourism investment program fund, correct?
Well, yes, Councilman, the Tourism Investment Fund is made up of a number of special taxes that are placed on a number of businesses throughout the city, but there tends to be a concentration at the resort area. Restaurant taxes, restaurant meal taxes, for example, go into that, but there's a split made to try to estimate that which are generated out of the resort and that which is generated in the resort. And other taxes are the lodging taxes, the entertainment taxes, and these admission taxes. They are segregated from the general fund. Yes, sir.
So just for clarity, they're segregated from the general fund, so they would not be possible to use them to address flooding, to support schools, public safety, some of the other items that has been discussed here.
Well, I think
Not in the direct way that's been asserted.
Council
tonight.
would have I believe, and the city attorney can come in if he wants, I believe council would have the ability, and has in the past, appropriated some monies from the Tourism Investment Fund to other sources. I think about 2 years ago, some was spent for some waste management trucks. So it is.
Generally not regarded as a best practice.
Generally has been segregated, but I don't believe there's any prohibition against using it.
No, I just think that distinction is important, that this money wouldn't exist in the TIP fund if not for the presence of the festival, which I don't feel the need to repeat all the virtues of the festival, but we'll let the people and each member decide for themselves whether that value exists for the investment. For me, I'm inclined to believe that it does.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Mr. Jones's remarks. I think it's always difficult and sometimes embarrassing to do math in public, and I think we got a lot of math in public in it. I think it demonstrated that that's true. So, but independent of the issue, this felonious idea about but-for taxes, but for me deciding to go to the movies, there's no amusement tax at Lynn Haven Mall. But for me deciding to go out and eat at a restaurant, there's no meal tax at whatever restaurant I go to. So all discretionary spending by a resident is but for income. But for my decision to do this, you get money. So there's lots of revenue that's but for, and it's but for how I use the dollars that I get. So that shouldn't be the basis upon which this analysis should take place, because we don't give rebates to the movie theater, we don't give rebates to the golf courses. So this shouldn't be about that. It should be about the point Mr. Guy made. If we believe the value of the services that our citizens and visitors are getting at these other venues, which are not compensated, are worth what we're getting, then we're buying something. We're making a purchase. We're not rebating anything. We're buying something that we think is of value. But we shouldn't kid ourselves to think that it has anything to do but for taxes. That's just bad thinking. I can't imagine Warren Buffett even talking about such nonsense. Because everything except for real estate taxes, but if I didn't maintain my property, my value would fall. So I think we need to get away from that logic, and we need to talk about is there an intangible value to the business proposition that merits the public investment? And make your case on what we believe the citizens are getting and why we think it's a value for them to get that.
and all the other stuff makes no sense. And that should be the basis upon which this decision is made. And does every festival have to get the same amount of money? I hope not, because every business doesn't get the same amount of business. You got to look at each of these things on their own basis. But eventually, we should be able to tell the citizens, but because we made these investments, we didn't have to raise our taxes and they got more flooding projects. But we haven't gotten there yet, because everything they get is more, we charge more. And I think that's what I heard more of merit from the citizens who spoke here tonight. And it's not germane to this particular thing. I think it's a sentiment that goes across a lot of our priorities, is when do we get the dividend? You know, this isn't like buying Amazon, you're buying growth. People are making investments because they want a dividend in their lifetime. And I think we have to show, and I think that's the mayor's point that he's been making, is growing these things. But we have to show what's in the budget that people otherwise wouldn't get if not for the investments that we made. And that's kind of a comment that I thought had merit. But I do agree with Mr. Belushi that these other parts, we're not trying to take something away. But we shouldn't try to dress it up as if it's free money. It's just we're making a conscious decision, if we do, that we think what's coming from this event and the promoters is providing something of value to our citizens. And as to Mr. Jones's point, how do we make sure that we still do have a fiduciary responsibility to know that that there's some kind of business logic behind the choice that we made? And so I'm not either for or against, but I'm not prepared to vote for your motion tonight because I think we haven't got the math down.
Okay, Jim, and then Aaron.
So, one of the questions, so I think the argument can certainly be made that it was a 3-day festival, it's going to a 7-day festival or 6-day festival, right? So it's double the time that we're gonna have the opportunity for people here. We're talking about double the time, 4 times the, roughly, depending upon what it ends up being. But I think, and the city attorney mentioned this, that we don't get the money until after the festival. So, well, right, but I mean, so that's, my question is, and, you know, Darren, who's ultimately will make the motion, is there a reason why this can't wait until the next meeting so that we can get clarity on it? Because, you know, I think about, and you and I had this discussion earlier, talk about the other festivals. I mean, you know, Neptune Festival, you know, I just pulled it up on their website, $23.5 million direct economic impact based on what is $1.19 million in direct tax revenue from them. Their subsidy is obviously a lot less than this. So, and there's other festivals too.
Right.
So I think that I don't think that there's a reason why, especially since the money would not be coming until afterwards, that we couldn't wait 2 weeks to get the staff to get us the information, because we've had 2 staff members give us 2 entirely different numbers on what the admissions tax is. And so I'd like to actually see those numbers first. I don't disagree that it's but for money. I understand where John feels on that, but I mean, that's something that we do in a lot of economic development, and I certainly think that is. So I would encourage you to make a motion to defer until the next meeting, and I think you get the support of the council. Otherwise, I just hate to see it, you know, any kind of division here.
Aaron, at this point, yeah.
Yeah, I hear it. I can understand that as well. One of the things, you know, just want to discuss about, and that's the will of the council, and so be it. But as you know, we have a full agendas as well going forward, whether that's short-term rentals, whether that's starting the budget process, whether that's looking, and we sat through a long meeting of discussion about the city manager. We have a lot of things on our plate. So let's focus on the concept. The concept is still the same. The concept is essentially the same. How we pay for it, how we get to it, that's what we can determine after the fact. One of the things I do want to discuss, and I didn't bring up earlier, when we talk about value, we're talking about value in this festival and what does the investment in this festival means. Well, earlier I gave you the number $21.7 million of the economic impact the festival has. What I didn't tell you or include in that is the ascribed value that the earned media has going with this festival. We could not take that into account, so I asked our city city auditor to take that into account, and he ascribed the value on media that's in print, media that goes around the entire world, that value was $41.6 million. $41.6 million, that value was of advertising. We talk about TIP, what the TIP fund is designed and TAP fund was designed to do, advertise Virginia Beach around the world. So that has a value of $41.6 million. That does not include the social media aspect of it, the social media value. And if you add in social media value, that sum near doubles, goes over $82 million in advertisement value for the city of Virginia Beach going around the world. That is what something in the water brings if you're talking about the type of value. Yes, the concept is exactly the same, but here, when you are sitting here and we are sponsoring, increasing our sponsorship, whatever the admission tax is, and I'm sure Brian can be clear on that again, around $900,000. Look at the return we are getting, whether that's $82 million, $41 million in advertisement value, or that's $21.7 million in direct economy impact. And that means all of our, was that lodging, hotel, meals, that our entire city benefits off of. And so I will leave that to the will of the council, but I was always taught, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today.
Okay, Sabrina? Okay, I'm sorry, if I can get the attorney then.
I just wanted to clarify a statement that I made earlier that was not completely correct, and I want to get it right. According to the summary of sponsorship document that's part of the agenda item that you would be approving, half of the payment would be made before the festival and the other half after the festival, subject to audit. I misstated that. I wanted to make sure that I stated it correctly. I'm sorry to interfere with your deliberations, but I wanted to be accurate.
Thank you. Sabrina?
So I just wanted to share my observation and certainly agree with the investment part of the something in the water. There is a investment, there is a business transaction. However, what I have observed, today we had a presentation, but in also being a part of and attending the festival is seeing the movement, the experience, the people who came together, the young adults from different generations, different creeds, different colors, different background. This event, which has already been said is more than a festival, I mean, it's changed the atmosphere of our community. I mean, you can see, you can hear people talk about the experience today as if it were yesterday, because it's something, the festival has brought something to this area and to this community that we have never had before. And so it's not the same as, our regular festivals that we, have put on for many years. It's something bigger, it's something great, and it's something that we need in this area for our young people. It's changing our community. It's changing and having an impact regionally. The whole region was impacted by this one event. And the accolades for this event goes out globally. That's not like something we've had before. And so when we talk in terms of supporting this event, it's more than just a transaction. This is an experience for people all over the world who are taking part of, and it's something that we certainly need to pay attention to, and it's something that we want to continue. And so, the bottom line is we have to make a decision because the event has been extended. How are we going to support and fund it? And, that's ultimately what we have to do. But I just want to bring attention to that is more than just a business transaction. It's something great for our city. It's showing people who we are. It's putting eyes on this area that have never been seen before and causing people to pay attention to what's going on here. And the investment that we make, it's sustainable. After a period of time, we will see the sustainability in our community. We will see the benefits that we will continue to reap, not just as, businesses, but as a community, as a region, and globally. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, at this point, if I can make a suggestion, I am a big supporter of this. I was 100% in favor of last year, and I'm 150% of this year. And I think we have some confusion at the table that, perhaps clarification. I would like to see a unified vote on this. And the thing is, if we would be willing to schedule it at our next workshop, because I think it's not only this year we're going to be discussing, hopefully this is going to be an event that's going to go on forever in Virginia Beach. And the point is, it may actually be the impetus for other positive events going forward. So I just think, for point of clarification, as we've heard from some council members, to discuss it, and as Rosemary said, come up with a policy that this will be an ongoing year thing, that, that would be just an automatic thing. And then also to consider other policies that would address, other, type of venues. Obviously, it was pointed out, a lot of the other venues, this is an important, Sabrina's 100% right. This is also not only a business thing, this is a cultural thing. So my thing is, if we could just talk about it at a workshop next week and come to a conclusion. And the other thing is, if we have some confusion up here, I'm sure the public might have some confusion. We want them to buy in too, so that would be my recommendation. Okay, and at this point, do we have a motion in a second?
I'll make a motion to defer it to the next business meeting, and with the thought that we will have a workshop, a time on our next workshop to discuss this and work out the formula.
And resolve it.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Votes on.
By a vote of 10-1, you've deferred this item until March 17th.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good discussion, and we will be discussing it. Thank you all. Okay? At this point, can we have Mr. Wood with the appointments?
So, Mr. Mayor, make the following nominations to the 2040 Vision Action Community Coalition: Sandra Roberts and Brian Gadsby. To the Bikeways and Trails Advisory Committee, Carter Sinclair. To the Citizens Committee on Boards and Commissions, Councilmember Berlucci and Councilmember Henley as liaisons. To the In-House Pharmacy Exploratory Committee, School Board Member Kim Melnick and School Board Member Trinace Riggs. To the Resort Advisory Commission, Bill Gambrell.
Mr. Mayor, before we terminate the meeting, I meant to hit the green button on the last one to defer it till the next.
Okay.
Just
Madam
wanted-
Clerk, could you go ahead and make that change with the unanimous vote?
We'll note that verbal yes to defer, Mr. Rouse, so it'd be 11-0. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Okay.
So that's all the nominations.
Okay, nominations are in. The vote is open.
Mr. Rouse, are you deferring? I mean, are you abstaining?
I don't know what's wrong with my thing.
It's the green one.
I hit the green one, and then.
I watched him. He hit the green one.
Yeah, the same thing happened last time. I hit the green one, and the.
Oh, that's good.
It's old system, sorry. So by a vote, are you gonna do a
Yes.
verbal yes?
Yes,
Thank
verbal
you. By a
yes.
vote of 11-0, you have,
I'm saving that.
Yeah, I don't.
you have appointed those
I hit it.
as nominated by Vice Mayor Wood.
Oh, we got yours set up there.
That's why we did.
Funny, 'cause mine works
That's why
fine.
we didn't use City Hall, just so you have
Yeah,
the budget.
Ghost is over here.
Yeah, we're gonna get new buttons in the new building. All right, at this point, if there's any unfinished business, any new business, we are adjourned, and we will have open, public comment.